When I lived in Camp Victim, only thinking of myself, only thinking of my needs and who I needed my husband to be for me, the things I told myself and him that he needed to change for me to be happy in the relationship. Living in that place, I was miserable. My husband suffered and was miserable in the marriage because I put all the pressure and all the burden on him to make me happy and meet my needs. That's what we see from so many different influencers and channels and social media accounts out there about relationships. So much of it is geared towards what the man needs to do for the woman. There's very, very little out there about what a man might need in the relationship, that as women, if we just give them those things in breadcrumbs, and I often say, I hope we can find it in ourselves to give a lot more than that. But if we just give breadcrumbs of the things that make them feel good and secure in a relationship, which are just part of a healthy relationship, they will go get the moon and stars and lay them at our feet. It's really, really that simple. But the problem for me was living in Camp Victim, pointing the finger outside of me to my husband about why I was unhappy in the relationship, the things he needed to do or change. There was no change. Because when I blamed my husband, there was no impetus to look at myself and how I was showing up in the relationship, what I was providing or not providing as an expression of being who I am and being a wife. I could only see what I thought my husband wasn't doing or the things that he was doing to contribute to the problems in the relationship. It was only when I moved into Camp Take Responsibility, looking at myself, that things began to change, because then I could be the solution. I had something to work on in me that I actually had control over. The other problem in my marriage was that I had no commitment to myself. No commitment to myself, no commitment to my husband and how I was showing up in the marriage. And again, that's where my husband suffered. I suffered. I was miserable. I had to be given the context. I had to be red pilled, which is why this is the red pill for women. I had to be red pill. I had to be woken up to see that being married to a good man, that I was the problem. It was me. And only by seeing that I was the problem could I then be the solution and begin to change how I showed up and actually consider my husband and his needs as a man, that things began to change. So why does it work that way? I want to give just a brief reminder of why it works this way for us as women. That if you are married to a good man, that you are the problem. Because that can feel like a tough pill to swallow. But it's actually a very empowering pill to swallow. Because if you can recognize that, things can change very, very quickly. And I know there's women listening, or what that will listen, who will say, well, I do all these things. He's the one not doing anything. What about my needs? So you want to listen to this carefully about why it's actually the opposite with a good man. A good man's nature is that he is caring, loving, thoughtful, hardworking, responsible. That's his nature. And the epitome of a good man is that all he wants is for his wife to be happy. And he will do just about anything to try to make his wife happy. What happens is that as women, we live in Camp Victim. We're unhappy in ourselves. We project that unhappiness in ourselves onto our husbands. And through our behaviors, we make them wrong and bad, which is emasculation. And it pushes good men away. So eventually, over time, they begin to withdraw. They disengage from the relationship. They might rebel. They check out. They might fight back, which is a consequence of our behaviors and how we are showing up. We're the ones pushing them away that causes them to withdraw disengage and stop trying to do the things that they think or we think will make us happy. So ladies, we have to go first to evaluate and take a look in the mirror of how we are showing up in the marriage, how we are treating our husbands, to work on ourselves and show up differently, not to get them to re-engage, not with a hidden agenda of what we need them to do or who we need them to be for us, but actually for ourselves, as like what I shared in the beginning, to value ourselves, to be a woman of character and integrity, and use the role of being a wife as our greatest journey to evolve into a real woman and be the best version of ourselves. Our husbands get the benefit. I put in the thumbnail today that being a good wife is noble. And noble means that we are admired and respected because one is unselfish and morally good. When we live our life from a virtuous place of character and integrity, not because of who we think we need to be for society or others or what we're supposed to do or even for our husbands, but when we act in virtuous ways of character and integrity for ourselves, that is a surefire path to happiness. In the background here, I have a little bust of Aristotle. And the reason being is that I most relate with Aristotle's explanation of happiness through living a virtuous life and valuing virtues. That is the path of happiness that I teach, that when we hold ourselves to a standard of character and integrity, even in the face of life's biggest challenges and adversities, and we do that simply for ourselves because it's who we want to be, that's what shows us that we value ourselves and makes us feel really good about who we are internally, which leads to fulfillment and being content and feeling meaningful and purposeful in life, which is really what it means to be happy. So ladies, the things I'm going to share with you are a way for you to commit to yourself, to make your marriage, your husband, yourself a priority as a path to feeling really good about who you are, and cherry on top, having a fantastic, lovely, happy, healthy marriage and a wonderful, wonderful life. And you will have a good man that is right there waiting for you to re-engage when you really just treat him nicely